Okay, I needed to pee and now I'm back. It's a mission against women in particular, alright? And it's to lay them waste, okay? Under some kind of chauvinistic, misogynistic umbrella, the aim of which is to prove that we can get what we want just because we're determined to get it. It's an arrogance on the part of men across the world who, in an aim to conquer and essentially enforce the patriarchy, literally lay women waste using witchcraft. It's a problem in this country, that is South Africa, for obvious reasons. That's why we are manifesting so much global gender-based violence. But this thing is global. It's happening across the world. And these men are using all the wealth, the girth of the resources that they have in order to decimate and destitute these women who are suffering under war crimes. Like, when you enter into a war, like I said, the Lord compares the mission that I am on to that which ultimately set those women, not just those women in Bosnia free, but women at all that find themselves in the war zone. The goal at the end of this is to outlaw rape as a war crime, not as a war crime, but outlaw rape as a war weapon, as a weapon of war, and to criminalize militants who decide that women's bodies are up for grabs insofar as they belong to the opposing team, insofar as they belong to the enemy camp, insofar as they belong to the enemy camp. So if they have made out of you an enemy, you are subject for rape. But these men would never, like I said earlier with an example of Bosnia, these soldiers that did this to women at this particular war zone, they would never, in their own towns, in their own neighborhoods where they came from, the civilized society that they lived in, rape. They got conscripted as warriors in their countries, soldiers, precisely because they were trusted men and law-abiding citizens. They got sent to war to honorably fight on behalf of their countries, and so they would never ever break out into the hives of rape in their own backyards, in street corners, lurking in their own environments. They only do it to women they consider to be of the enemy camp, of another country. They only do it to women that they consider to be women of the other camp, women belonging to the other country. So essentially they are big, fat, chunky hypocrites, in the sense that they would never rape their own daughters' friends. They would never rape their own children. They would never rape their own wives. They would never, they basically choose somebody else's innocent kid, somebody else's innocent family member, somebody else's whatever, and they make that individual meat for the eating. And it's not just regular pursuit where you're like, will you please date me because I love you. It is, I'm gonna take it. And it is also a method to punish. It is aggressive. It is something to get at women. The very intention is to humiliate women. Think about women also coming from regular lives, whatever it is that were the lives that they were living prior to this war breaking out. Some of them were doctors, some of them were lawyers, some of them were accountants, some of them were housewives, homemakers, some of them were business women, some of them were etc. They were basically respectable women in society, and these women were also respected and loved by men in their community. So they did not have fear of men, and they also did not have trauma from men in their environment. And men in their environment also went out of their way to protect them as women and maintain their virtue. But now that they find themselves in a war zone, the men of their town are rounded up and either killed or enslaved to certain kinds of labor, while the women are kept as sex slaves in a separate concentration camp for the pleasing of soldiers who at a whim can just call for the brunette. Do you understand what I'm saying? That is the challenge. It is essentially the locking out of strength, the taking away of an ability to be himself of regular men. These men not only take women and do with them what they want, but they block or they thwart, they harass, they enslave with hard labor good men. They go out of their way to incarcerate better than that men, essentially men that would never go out like that, men that would never hurt women that way, and who would make it their mission to protect. They make sure that they have no strength because they catch them with these weapons of war. These men who are... Actually, it's perfect. It's ideal. Risa, I'm busy watching House. The example that God has been giving me, showing me this whole entire time. I have been not coming here to talk about it because I've been ignoring it, because I've been wondering, why God are you showing me that? And now that I'm talking with you guys, he re-energized it again. So I'm busy watching House MD on Netflix. It's a medical show. There is this one episode that came and went of Mos Def. You know Mos Def, the rapper. He is acting in this particular episode, okay, as a patient. He has been admitted to hospital, and there is a doctor that wants to basically start to harvest his organs because he appears to be brain dead, but he is locked inside his body, and he can hear everything that's happening on the outside. He can, he's sentient. He's completely around, but his body is paralyzed. He is unable to move. He entered into some kind of an accident while he was riding a bike because of him suddenly getting locked inside his body. And so when he went to the ER, the emergency room, the attending physician wanted to basically, since he was a donor, an organ donor, he wanted to basically just like unplug him or whatever, kill him, and start to, salvage his body parts. His heart is perfectly functional, wada wada. And as he's busy saying that his heart is perfectly functional, wada wada, he's talking inside his head, inside this body that's just like still, like dead. Like it looked like his eyes are open and he's not moving. It's just like still, dead still. And he is like, wait, whoa, I'm here. Don't take my heart. What are you talking about? I'm here. And nobody can hear this guy. Thankfully, the lead character of this show, Dr. House, got into some kind of a motorbiking accident and got admitted to the same hospital that this patient has been admitted to. So they're both in the emergency room. So he got hit by, he was riding a bike. The patient that was locked inside the body was riding a bike and fell because of this thing that he's got wrong with his body, while Dr. House was riding his motorbike and then crashed it somewhere, and then the two of them got admitted into the same hospital, and they were sitting next to each other. So because he is a doctor, curiously he's out here looking around at people in the ER and gazes upon this man in the bed as a patient himself, right? And he's like, I don't think that this guy needs to have his heart, his organs essentially salvaged. He's not dead, he's around, he's completely sentient. And the attending physician is like, you might be a doctor, but you're not his doctor. Get off my case. The attending physician is like, you might be a doctor, but you're not his doctor. Here you're a patient, so get off my case and get the step in. And he's like, this guy has got what they call locked-in syndrome. Locked-in syndrome, where your body, you're functional, you're sentient, your brain is completely 100% functional, but you and you can also feel the sensations on your body all across it. Like you can feel an itch, you can feel when somebody is whipping you, cutting you, breaking you, but you can't move. Much like what happens with patients waking up in the middle of surgery and feel everything, but they can't move their bodies. Yeah, because of anesthetic or whatever gone wrong. Something like that. But this dude experienced it because of some issue that he has medically. Okay? Yeah. And Dr. House is like, this guy has got locked-in syndrome. And then spoke with this man and said to him, if you can hear me, blink once for yes and blink twice for no, or blink once for no, twice for yes, or whatever. And then this guy blinks once and says that I can hear you for yes, and then no is like twice, etc. And that's when then this other physician was knocked off the case, because they asked the wife to talk. The wife comes in and is like, babe, do you want us to move you to the hospital of this other doctor? And then the husband blinks twice, and then that's when they moved this man over under Dr. House's care. He ultimately came full throttle alive around again, right? And ever since I saw that episode of House where that guy was locked inside his body, the Lord keeps on showing me that there are men who have got what is the tantamount of locked-in syndrome spiritually. Like they're here, and people are trying to salvage their body parts for scraps. They're trying to use them because they've been incapacitated somehow. They've been incapacitated by something, and this is making it impossible for them to fully function as men in society. But they would much rather do something different. And when a man has got spiritual locked-in syndrome, he can't protect the woman the way that he desires to protect her. He can't shield her. He can't provide the way that he wants to provide for her. He cannot basically come to rescue the day. He cannot act like, what do you call this thing? He cannot fulfill his duty as a man because he has been locked inside his body, and so therefore cannot be the fullness of who he would be if he was fully functional in his body. But he can feel every last pain cutting him, and he can also hear what people are saying about him. And in disagreement and in shock and horror, he is basically threatened with being salvaged for scraps when he's still perfectly available. And the only way out for this man is to essentially find the right doctor to give him a chance and recover him. The men of Bosnia were like men suffering from locked-in syndrome. Men in any war suffer from locked-in syndrome. Let us think about the men with whom the women were kidnapped by Hamas on October 7. They're men. They've got manly girth. They have got manly desires to love, care, provide, protect for a woman and children. But when you have got men with weaponry encircling you, when they are making you strip naked and are hosing you down with a hose pipe, when they are malnourishing you, when they're threatening your life, you get reduced to a child whose hands are tied when their mom is seizing on the floor with an epileptic fit. You know something is wrong, but you're locked in. You don't have enough resources in and of yourself. You're still a baby. You can tell something is wrong. You can tell that your mom is not okay. At most, you can cry. But unless somebody big comes in and has the back of the baby, and unless somebody comes in and has the back of the mom, calls the medics, everybody's in danger. The child will die from neglect, and the mom will die from whatever has taken her over. Do you understand? There was also another scene, Honako House MD, where a woman was bathing her baby, and she had a seizure in the bathtub, and the baby basically drowned, long story short. And the dad thankfully went out and then decided, no, I'm gonna go back home to go and fetch something. And then he saw the woman seizing in the bathtub with the baby literally drowned. Took the baby out, the baby was rescued. The story eventually evolved into something really nasty, but I'm not trying to get to that point right now, right? The mother was saved and the baby was saved because the man decided to turn back quickly enough. The situation that basically women that are thrown into this kind of war under this hostile force that comes in to a town all of a sudden causes men to be like that, the child in the bathtub with the mom seizing, incapacitated altogether. Everybody is incapacitated. So unless there is a tertiary structure coming in to salvage the whole situation, everybody dies. The baby dies, the mom dies. So in this instance, men are made like babies. Good men, reasonable men, honest and responsible men are reduced to mere children that can't really help women. They can't take care as their hands are tied in a most unfortunate capacity. Okay, men's hands get tied very, very unfortunately, and so their good men's hands are tied very, very unfortunately, and so therefore women are subjugated to the tyranny of the abusive structure. You saw what happened with the men arrested, taken captive by Hamas. Now they're busy talking about some hostage deal that I'm not quite watching online because I'm avoiding the news for a slew of reasons, but apparently it's disastrous, that whole hostage deal. But anyway, whatever, anything to set the captives free, right? But when men are incarcerated right next to women, it's not that their manhood is called into question. It's not that they can't do anything truly. It's that the structures that are beleaguering everybody are overpowering and all-consuming, reducing men therefore to catatonic, comatose, locked in, unable to truly have the back of women. And from a distance, they have got to watch women suffer. And that's what happened in October 7. The Israeli men that were kidnapped by Hamas, taken hostage, had to often watch Israeli women getting raped. There was nothing they could do about it. Similarly too, in Bosnia, these men had to watch their wives get taken from them, raped, their daughters taken from them, raped, aunts, nieces, rounded up, 15-year-olds getting impregnated by soldiers, and there was nothing they could do. Absolutely nothing they could do. If you've seen 12 Years a Slave as well, this was a problem with slavery too, where black women oftentimes were taken by white masters and raped. Henceforth, mixed babies would come forth. Some of these mixed babies, of which were not necessarily as a result of rape, but a black girl and a white guy falling in love and it being too taboo. And so the whole situation getting, written off as whatever. But sometimes it was rape. A lot of times, quite the chunky majority of the time it was rape. as opposed to getting in two rebels, as opposed to a Romeo and Juliet situation, was largely rape. Okay, and these women who got raped by slave masters, it's not that black men could not rescue women from being raped. It's not that they couldn't rescue their wives, their nieces, their cousins, their aunts, their moms, their sisters. It's not that they could not help but watch it. It's not that they could not help but watch it. It's that they were incapacitated to do anything about it at all. When you're also in fetters, when you're also in chains, and when you've also got a big fat chunky AK-40 sticking in 7 all up in on your temple, when you've also been harassed by violent militants, you have to sit there and watch an egregious, gruesome act of abuse that is taking away the virtue and the dignity of women you love, or of a woman you love. It is the sorrow of, I can't really say righteous men, but the sorrow of ungodly men who are nonetheless not this thing that I'm dealing with. Because righteous men are the only ones with any kind of weaponry. They're the only kinds of able soldiers to actually burst through bonds of wickedness and conquer structures. But there are men of the world that are not yet in Christ, that aren't, however, this malevolent thing. And they're the ones that are locked in. They're the ones that are locked in. Just like in Bosnia, their husbands were locked in, their boyfriends were locked in, their uncles, their grandfathers, their fathers were locked in while women were being raped. The thing that locked them in the war was indeed the fact that it was war criminals. And these are men that don't have weaponry. These are men who are in the world are not warriors, even in the slightest, spiritually. They have no idea what in the world is actually going on here in these streets. It's written in God's word that we must put on the full armor of God, the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the belt of truth, the shoes of peace, the shield of faith, carry the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Essentially, we need to be soldiers that are perpetually prepared, we are always ready to fight. The Bible says that the Lord has sent us out as sheep among wolves. Therefore, we must be innocent as doves, though shrewd as snakes. We are warriors. We fight as saints of the living God. But men and women who don't know Christ are often called sleepy. They're called civilians, while the rest of us in Christ are called soldiers. And we are implored not to partake in civilian affairs. Okay, I ran out of space and I had to turn my phone off and on after deleting, because iPhone will give you problems like that. So, yeah. I was talking about, yes, civilian affairs. The people of the world are described as sleepy. The people of the world are described as civilians as opposed to as soldiers. But if you think about what happened on October 7, after Hamas raided the kibbutz and the music festival, they went and they grabbed men and women who were in the reserves, and they had to fight now because their country was in danger. And the person that made this decree was the president of the land, or the prime minister. Do you understand? So there comes a time when sleepy folk gotta wake up, because there is literally a war declared on you, even as a civilian. And men that are civilians have no idea just how locked in they are. These occult creeps literally are stealing everything, and they're locking in regular Janes and regular Joes. A couple of years ago, I overheard the Spirit of the Lord saying that these men bully good men. Like when I was staying Go Naturina, the word that the Lord used was bully. And he said that they go out of their way to bully men who don't want to participate in this filth. Baba Bulia. They treat them like second-grade citizens, and sometimes they go out of their way to thwart them, block them in some way. For instance, when you are, think about the way that prostitutes feel about good girls. They tend to avoid them in totality because they feel some kind of way. In the climate of these women, they prefer to encircle themselves with each other. They make friends out of each other because they're living a lifestyle that is generally frowned upon by the regular man and the regular woman on the street. If 10 prostitutes were to be in the same room with a virgin, they're going to make that virgin's life a living nightmare. They're not just going to leave her alone. They're going to bully her, traumatize her. They're going to call out whatever it is that this virgin might lack and use it against her. because it's their way of coping with the fact that they're doing something that they understand inherently as wrong. So they make the life of the virgin nightmarish, just like in the case of Cain and Abel. Wicked men that twala, that carry in order to make wealth, can't stand honest men. And so they, just like in the case of the prostitute, they go out of their way to limit or restrict the ability that regular man, the abilities that regular men can effect, what they can walk in. Essentially, they become terroristic to society. If you are not involved in dark arts, if you're not using magic, you're not going to be okay in life. You're not going to get a job. You're not going to thrive. Everything you start is going to go to dust. Everything you look at is going to just fizzle away. Everything they cause men and women that basically deserve each other or that are good for each other to elude each other. They orchestrate romances with themselves, with good women that ought be better stewarded and will indeed be better stewarded by better men. So essentially they take away good girls from decent men, and they take away good men from decent girls, and they mix themselves with these people. They put themselves in good people's lives, miserating the living daylights out of those people. This is an epidemic, therefore, that causes so much sorrow in households where you are married to someone that is literally spiritually manipulating you. You are married to a man, he won't leave you alone. Or you are married to a woman that's always sprinkling your drink with dirt. You can't move left or right. You can't do what you want to do. When you've got one foot out the door, when your suitcases are packed, you get reeled back in with witchcraft. It's a war. And if you are a civilian, you are going to be incarcerated and be reduced to a baby as a man. You will watch good girls get taken away by worthless men, raped, have babies put in their stomachs, and put at the mercy of those who are going to make worthwhile women prostitutes. They literally attempt to convert good girls into whores. And when you are kidnapped right next to the woman that is being raped repeatedly all day long, there is nothing you can do about it as a man. And civilian men are like that. Men of the world can do nothing about the spiritual war declared on women because they're not soldiers. But you see, it's written in God's word about the last days that will the Lord find faith on the earth. There aren't enough soldiers conscripted in this army to successfully win this battle without reserves being brought in from work. In Israel, civilians became soldiers. Doctors went to war. Lawyers went to war. Call center agents. People that were not officially 100% in the employ of the IDF were temporarily in the employ of the IDF because war was declared on their land. Well, war has been declared on South Africa, but it's been declared globally at all. And when such a war as this happens, the Lord will always raise, like I said, it's always the prerogative of the president or the prime minister to bring reserves in from their 9-to-5 jobs, because now the country is at war. The nation's head of state is the one to send this decree out. God has been sending decrees out on our countries, our nations, and saying, time to sleep is done. You can't continue to lay down. You can't say, like Cain, that am I my brother's keeper? Because quite frankly, if you are not fighting for the kingdom of heaven, you are what do you call this thing? You are a vessel for the kingdom of darkness. You are a decoy. You are at the mercy of these worthless creeps because they will round you up. Listen, in Bosnia, okay, the soldiers of the opposite camp, the soldiers of the opposite camp, of the camp of the soldiers belonging to the country where the women were raped, okay, were at war with themselves. They were fighting. They were trying to set back the militants. They had their own thing to do. So if at all the men of that Bosnia, the military age men, the fighting age men, if they did not get over themselves and how scared they are and lift up arms, if they did not do that, these women would perpetually be subjugated to this tyranny, and they would also be subjugated to the tyranny as well of being made just babies, just children. They can do nothing when their mom is being slapped silly by a deadbeat dad. Proper, this locked-in syndrome is also similar to the way that kids react or are in the climate of an abusive father over their mom. It's like your hands are tied. There's nothing you can do. This man is a giant. If it was up to you, however, you would kill him, you would end him, you would neutralize him, but you're too small. And so you have to keep watching your mom take those blows. You will be like helpless children in the climate of an abused mother. Men. These men will keep taking wives that belong to you. They will keep withholding. Like, I'll give you an example of locked-in syndrome. There is an actual perfect example of locked-in syndrome that I was unfortunately subjugated to the tyranny of. But in all fairness, I couldn't have ended up with that guy because I gave my life to Christ. But there is no telling what would have happened if we came together before Christ, if we were both given our lives over to the Lord. There was this, okay, so when I was dating my ex-boyfriend, I was unhappy in the relationship, like the whole entire time. I was literally trying to leave. I was trying to get out, but I was locked in because I was a civilian. I was a civilian and he was a soldier for Satan. My ex-boyfriend had held me hostage with witchcraft. Because I was a civilian, I was locked in. So as a woman, I was suffocating, being daily, essentially spiritually raped by someone I didn't want to be with, because the only reason I would continue to be with him and sleep with him is that he spiritually manipulated me, which makes it a form of rape. The last 4 years of our 5-year relationship were spent as a hostage. However, when you're a hostage, you know you're a hostage inherently, deep down inside, intrinsically, you know you're a hostage. So I always wanted a way out. I always wanted out. I could smell in the sky that something was wrong with the situation and I didn't want to be in it. Okay? But I was in it. I was with a man that was manipulating me spiritually. And if I did not get rescued by Jesus Christ at some point, I would have married him. So I'm grateful that God saved me. That's why earlier I said that God called me for this work, because I not only was a victim, but now I'm a conqueror, because I'm a soldier now. I broke out of that which has incarcerated many people in this country, in this world at large. My ex-boyfriend had held me hostage with witchcraft in the relationship, right? There was a time when I used to work out. So hold on to the fact that I had locked-in syndrome. I was dating this man who had locked me in. And then there was a time when I wanted to lose weight around the 2010 World Cup. So my ex and I started dating in 2006. And this was now 2010. No, it was 2009, not 10. It was 2009, not 10, because when I stopped working out was around the 2010 World Cup. And I can't remember if the World Cup happens around winter or summer, but I would imagine it was definitely winter, so it was around August, September, meaning that this whole thing of mine was either early 2010 or 2009, right? So basically 3 years into our relationship, I started working out. I went to a dietitian that was awarded me by my company. The company that I worked for, MTN, used to give us all of these like random crazy free services that would get paid by our medical aid, CAMF, whatever. So there was an on-site dietitian that came and gave us like a speech or whatever in one of the CAMF road shows. Like the medical aid that was CAMF did a roadshow at work to show us their services, all that they're offering. And one of the people that came there to speak was a dietitian. I gained a lot of weight when I was with my ex-boyfriend. I was on Diane 35, which is a contraceptive pill. And so I knew that I needed to lose weight. And I had tried to do it on my own. I wasn't exactly obese, but I had a lot of water retention from the pill. And I wanted to get in shape. I had aspirations of being fit one day. So I took the services of this dietitian lady to go and see her. And she gave me a health plan and everything, wada. And then she also, of course, it came highly recommended that I go to the gymnasium. Right next to the plans for diet were also offered plans for a cheapened up, what do you call this? Like Virgin Active plan. So I started going to the gym and I really disciplined myself. I was a student, I was working, but I still disciplined myself after lectures because the gym used to close at like 10 p.m. at night. Yeah, I used to discipline myself to go to the gym every single day. And I started to, because you know when you're on a diet plan or when you're doing this thing, when you're working out, you know how you tell the world, ooh, I'm going to the gym every day. You're all excited about your journey. I also started to lose weight, and the dietitian would take my measurements and people would be like, you're losing weight nicely, you look good. You're losing weight nicely, you look good. So because I was working out and because I was here, I was very vocal about how it is that almost every day I'm at the gym. I'm so disciplined because I wanted my colleagues to find me impressive. One of my colleagues who was a gym buff, okay, noticed that I am losing weight, but I was not gaining muscle, okay? I was losing weight, but I was not gaining muscle because I was still, same old Karabo, getting thinner, but I was still soft, you know? My muscles are like very, very soft. I was still punchy. Yeah, type establishment thing. And this dude was thick. He was like a beefcake of muscle, okay? And he was known for the like gym stuff. He was the gym guy. He was very muscular. Like, he couldn't even put his hands next to his body properly. He looked like Danny Bravo, but like Wamukava, whatever. There was a very buff gym guy in our team, and he was like, Karabo, you've been going to the gym. Congratulations, I can see you losing weight. Well done. But you need to have a well-rounded gymnasium schedule. You need to basically incorporate strength and cardio. And I can see from the way that you look, he was like, I can see from the way that you look that you only do cardio. I was like, you're not wrong. I've been wanting to do strength, but I am deathly scared of those lifting machines, those circuit training machines. I feel like I'm gonna look stupid. I feel like I'm gonna look dumb, and the people there look very serious with life, and I don't want to just sit among them looking like I don't know what I'm doing. So I just kind of chill where everybody else that's starting out of the gym chills. I'm at the stepper, I'm at the cycling machine, I am at the treadmills, because that's what a lot of people who are first introducing themselves to the gymnasium are at. They're comfortable there, and that's where all the pudgy ladies are at. That's where all the pudgy Jews, that's where all the people with the spit judges are at. So I'm just gonna stick with who I know, so I don't make a fool out of myself. The intention is to pay a personal trainer one day to basically help me out with starting to do strength training. He's going to show me around the ropes and be with me when I'm at those machines, so I don't feel really dumb. You know what I mean? And when I told him this, that I'm waiting to basically be able to afford, because I was literally calculating it in my mind. I had already spoken to this one personal trainer, and he had quoted me like 3,000 rands over for like sessions that would happen over like 4 or 5 months or whatever. And I was deeply considering taking this guy's offer up, so I could okay, all my videos are done. Wonderful. Yeah, I was deeply considering taking up the services of this personal trainer, and so I tell this colleague that, no, but there's a personal trainer, he costs this much, and I think he's reasonable, but I need to save up the money, because I mean, goodness, I'm paying for this and I'm paying for that, blah blah, I've got school, I've got what, finish pace. And so here's this like gym buff guy on some, hey, look, ain't no need for you to go and pay no big money like that. Ain't no need for you to go and pay anybody a whole chunk of dough in order for you to get fit. I can train you, right? I can train you, but in order for me to train you, you'd have to come to my gymnasium. I used to go to the gymnasium in, the flagship branch, Virgin Active, which is here in Little Fall, in Volgehevel, whatever, the one right near my neighborhood. This guy used to work out in Cresta, and it was a little bit of a drive, a stretch, because I lived in my neighborhood, right? It was a little bit of a drive and a stretch, okay? Because my branch was right here. But this guy was basically offering to keep 3,000 rands in my bank account that would have left. So for me, the small little extra drive to go to Cresta was okay, especially considering where I, like, MTN was like in the middle of where I stayed in Cresta. So it wasn't like I went from where I stayed to Cresta. It was like I was going from work to there after work. So I was like, whatever. At the time I'm dating my ex-boyfriend, right? Let's just bang that at the top of your head. I'm like, fine, whatever, I'll attend the gymnasium sessions at that environment with you. And then this guy, because he was this gym buff and he was well known at that gym, he had a whole bunch of connections. This guy had a whole bunch of connections at Cresta. So even though he was not, he wasn't a personal trainer. No, he wasn't a personal trainer, but he was very big on training, because he, had, like I told you, his hands were like around here on his body type setup thing. Because he was well known at that gymnasium and out here constantly calling people, helping that gym gain more people, they used to give him these like tickets to say that a person can, if you give people these, we will, basically he got perks for promoting that Virgin Active. That's what I'm getting at. And the perks that he got were these flyers that he got to give to people and say, this is going to give you 5 gym sessions for free, and then afterwards, if you really like it, you can join the gym type setup thing. So he just had like stashes upon stashes of these freebie tickets to work out at this particular gymnasium. And he was like, you can come to my gym, you don't have to join, and seeing as your membership is not universal but it's for your branch only, you can come to my gym and you can enter using these tickets. And he gave me these tickets at work, and then I will train you how to work out. I was like, it sounds like a sweet deal, I don't care, I don't mind. He's a colleague, he's friendly, nothing shoddy, nothing strange, nothing whatever. I'm thinking that this dude neutral. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I take up the offer to be trained up by him. I take up the offer and I rock up at the gymnasium. And when I rock up at the gymnasium, first and foremost, okay, so this guy had a best friend that I had met at the funeral of one of my colleagues' cousins passed away, and not only one of my colleagues' cousins passed away, but this colleague's cousin was also one of my boyfriend's friends from the south of Joburg. So my boyfriend had a friend that passed away, and it turns out that this guy was the cousin of one of my colleagues. Okay, bank that information, right? Bank that information. My boyfriend had a friend that passed away in a horrific car accident, and this dead guy had a cousin that we worked with, right? That's important because our colleague had lost a cousin. Some of our colleagues were there for her. Like, yeah, she lost a loved one, she was bereaved and cried about it at work, and people were like, oh, I'm sorry, I'll be there for you. And so some of my colleagues went to the funeral to support the colleague that had lost a cousin. My boyfriend went to the funeral because his boy died. I went to the funeral because my boyfriend wanted company. I wouldn't have gone to the funeral of that chick's cousin for her because I wasn't that tight with her. I wouldn't have gone because of my colleague. I went because of my boyfriend. I was accompanying my boyfriend. My boyfriend was the one I was there with, right? But I guess it wouldn't kill to be there for the colleague who had lost a loved one. Okay, one of the close buddies of this colleague who lost a cousin was this gym buff guy, and he was like, "Ungawari, sisters, we're gonna be there for you. We're gonna go to the funeral of your cousin to show respects." So yeah, he was there, and this gym buff guy had this like best friend that was always tailing him. The two of them were like peas in a pod. They were always just like everywhere hopping together, right? And he would talk about him all the time and what have you. And he was always speaking about how it is that his boy, all the ladies love him. He's like LL Cool J. Ladies love Cool James. All the ladies love him. All the ladies are always just throwing themselves at him. Type establishment thing. And when I looked at this gym buff guy, I was like, hi Suga, I don't believe anything you say, because he was a total Casanova. He used to flirt with everybody. He used to call everybody my darling, my sweet. He would hug you for like 3 seconds too long. He was one of those men in the office that would annoy the living daylights out of you, right? But you just accommodate him because he was a big, giant, gentle, like he was a gentle giant, like a big teddy bear that everybody was like, but he had a lot of licentious nuances to him that I absolutely despised. He had a lot of licentious facets to him that I despised, but to me it was like, it's one of his quirks, his nuances, whatever. Yeah. So when he was always talking about his boy that all the ladies love, like LL Cool J, I was like, oh, your boy, I'm sure fun an our way. He's probably like you. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if your boy, this thing is actually giving me all this slagging nonsense. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if if this friend of his that he's always talking about that the ladies love, like LL Cool J, I wouldn't be surprised if Bayafana, if they were all into just randomly groping women and touching women and talking to them like they're, like objects. He used to objectify women in the office. It was annoying. So when he was always talking about his boy, I was like, birds of a feather flock together, minang nandaba. Birds of a feather flock together, mina, I don't care. I would never ever like anybody that is suited to this dude. Plus this dude was buff, he was beefy, but he was also kind of like low-key fat. He was like fat butch. He was, those guys that are muscular but they also kind of look fat. Yeah. And for me, I didn't like that kind of chunk. So I was like, when I saw him, I just saw his friend, like this friend that he was always talking about. I was like, Bayafana, they must be. I had not met him, but for years since I had known him, he was always talking about this friend of his. Temba this, Temba that, Temba this, Temba that, Temba this, Temba that. I know, I went to this one place with Temba. I know Temba, then I did this. Here, me and Temba went to this place. So I knew that he had a best friend by the name of Temba. And of course, Temba is a pseudonym, okay? So I was like, whatever, when I know Temba wako. The colleague then loses her cousin. My boyfriend then loses his friend. And then I go to the funeral for the sake of my boyfriend. And my colleagues, a couple of my colleagues went to support this chick, right? Went, including let's say the beef chunk guy's name was Thomas, right? I saw Thomas and Temba. I saw Thomas. Thomas went to the funeral to support the colleague. Thomas went to the funeral to support the colleague, and because Thomas was always with Temba, surprise, surprise, when he went to the funeral, and that was the first time in maybe like like 2 years. I think when this woman's cousins died, and when my ex's friend died, I think my ex and I were dating for about 2 years, right? So it's like a year before I started working out. Cool. Yeah, so like 2008 now. This is 2008. So in 2008, this guy passes away, and then we go to the funeral, and I meet Temba for the first time. We've been hearing about Temba for years, right? This guy can do nothing but talk about Temba. He's on the tip of his tongue, because they're tight, right? I then meet the man behind the speeches. I meet Temba. And yo, guys, if I tell you I got it, like I understood. Okay, my phone is giving me grief and whatnot. I've got such space restrictions. Next time I'm not going to record on this iPhone, but I started here, so I'm going to finish here. Okay, yeah, that's what's good. Utamba, I finally met him, and when I met him after 2 years of hearing a lot about him, I was like, I got it. I was at this funeral with my boyfriend, right? And when I saw Temba, when Thomas was like, oh, this is my boy Temba, you know, the one I'm always talking about. I was like, hi, how's it, nice to meet you, I'm Karabo, etc. Of course I was neutral and whatnot, because I was with my boyfriend, but yes, like, but the thing that his boy was talking about, you know how his friend was always like, all the ladies love Cool J, like LL Cool J, all the ladies love Temba. I was like, I can see it, I understand now. I understand why the ladies be out here throwing themselves on this guy. He was such a handsome man. He was just the right kind of beefy. He was just the right kind of chunky, orky. He was not the kind of, like, he was just perfect. Yeah, he was a perfect man. He was like an alpha male. You could tell that he worked out, but he wasn't fat, orky. He was built. He was a beautiful man, okay? And when I saw him, and he was tall just like Thomas was tall too. He was tall just like Thomas, but he had like definition in the way that Thomas didn't. He was basically, I understood why ladies love Cool James, except it wasn't James, it was Thomas. He was LL Cool T, not Temba, so he was Temba, LL Cool T. He was LL Cool T. He was ladies love cool Temba. Ladies love cool Temba. He was a really handsome man, right? And I, just in a very normal reaction as a woman, seeing a good looking man, I was like, wow, that guy is something else. He's so good looking, right? That's what I thought. I didn't flirt with him. I was with my boyfriend. I wasn't trying to pull stunts or anything like that, but I did acknowledge in my bones that, okay, I can see what dude was talking about. I can see what my colleague was talking about. And in terms of our rapport at that funeral, at the end we all sat together, right? You know how it is at funerals. He was such good peoples. He was sweet, he was nice, he was full of laughter, and he was not licentious like his boy, right? At least not at face value. He was really good peoples, like really, really good peoples. So I was like, this guy's cool, like he's really cool, like he's such a cool dude. Anyway, whatever, left it there. I was not flirting with him. I was not trying to do anything with this guy. Nothing at all. Literally, absolutely zero. Just an acknowledgement in me, however, that, whoa, he is actually really cute. So going forward, every time my colleague would speak about his boy Thomas, I knew what in the world he was talking about. A year later, I started working out, okay? Because I needed to come down. I figured I needed to lose some weight. A type establishment thing. That happens a year down the line, alright? From meeting Temba at the funeral, right? A year progresses. I'm still with my boyfriend, and this is now me and my boyfriend's literal final year together, okay? And I'm out here. World Cup 2010 happens, and Gumnandi, whatnot. No, but even before the World Cup, like the World Cup made me stop working out, because Philip was here and me, I was feeling Philip, so really and truly, like, yeah, it was rough to stay fit. Anyway, whatever. So before the World Cup happens, a couple of months before the World Cup happens, I decided to get serious about my what do you call this thing, about my health, about my weight and my what have you, more lifing type establishment thing. What happened? This guy, nah, it was before then, Shem. Anyway, yeah, a whole bunch of stuff happens, right? Not a whole bunch. I get fit. I decide to get fit. I didn't really I got fit to a sense, in the sense that I gained stamina, but I wasn't strong. Yeah, this guy was onto something. I then agreed to start working, to basically take up his services to personal train me. and then I was going to basically take it on from there myself. He was going to teach me what to do, and then I was going to go to my gym and do it there. I didn't need to stay with him. I of course told my boyfriend, I'm working out with that colleague that you met at the funeral. Yeah, the big Oki guy. Yeah, he's offered me personal training services, and he told me that he was cool with it, right? Only, however, after I stopped working out with the beefy guy, he then was like, he was like, no. I asked him while I was working out with the beefy guy, are you cool with me working out with him? And he's like, Karabo, what can I say? It's your choice. So basically he was saying to me, I'm not comfortable with you working out with him, but it's your life and I know you're gonna want to do what you want to do anyway. Whatever, dude. My ex was just a very insecure guy. Whatever. I'm out here working with Thomas, right? I'm working out with Thomas, and at the gymnasium where I went, he used to work. I did everything together, including they might have even met Kojimi. I don't know, because they were both weightlifters, okay, bodybuilders. I went to the gym, and indeed on the first day that I went there, his boy was there, and I remembered his boy from the funeral. His boy was there, and I remembered him from the funeral, okay? And I was like, hey, what's up? What's good? Hug everybody, wada fish paste. And my colleague trains me, right? He was the one that was training me. He was the one that was focusing on me. And this dude was a total gentleman. He never stared at me, ogled, like nothing. And also, the colleague guy was also quite professional in training me up. Except every so often he used to talk about my boobs. Like, that guy was licentious, but he spoke about my boobs even in the office. So it was nothing new that he spoke about them at the gym, right? Spoke about how they like these things. Anyway, whatever, cool beans. So, but he was professional in how he was training me. I actually gain, and I didn't spend enough time with him to see results, because Philip came, the World Cup came, and I dropped the ball, okay? Yeah, type establishment thing, so I can't really blame him for that, but he did train me. And in that season, while he was training me at the gymnasium with my ex-boyfriend Ajia about me training with some other guy, this Oki rocks up, right, and says to me, go officing one day, yo, my friend thinks you're beautiful. I was like, thank you, thanks, I appreciate the compliment. And I just leave it, right, on some, okay, his boy thinks I'm pretty. I was pleasantly surprised, but I literally did not think anything of it. We leave it there. It literally stays parked over there. And then one day we have a conversation. We're having a conversation. It's me, my Thomas in the office, right? We're having a little lunch in the pause area thing there. It was before I got my promotion as a project manager, and I was still serving underneath these teams. We're having some kind of coffee break, and I'm chilling with Thomas and two other guys, and it's me. And we're just sipping on vending machine coffee, right? Yeah. And then they start talking about beautiful women in the office. And I'm like, sitting there all uncomfortable on some because then you're gonna speak smack and y'all just have no discretion, right? But anyway, they spoke about women, and they were like, and then this guy says to me, you, Karabo, I never used to think you were beautiful. Ain't no woman trying to hear that. Ain't no woman trying to hear that. He literally tells me that I didn't think you were pretty until our colleague, this one white guy, and let's say his name was Jonathan. He was like, until Jonathan, we asked Jonathan, who do you think is the most beautiful woman in the team? And this was at the very beginning, like a year and a half ago, when everybody was just starting out in that team. And then as men, you know how they have these silly conversations. As men, because they keep having these silly conversations with each other, he then speaks, because at that stage they were speaking about beautiful women. And then he highlights some other season when they were speaking about beautiful women at the beginning of all of our tenure as working for MTN. So we're 2009 there, somewhere. And there everybody was brand spanking new. And he said that, yeah, I never used to think when Karabo that you were beautiful. I thought you were just regular, nothing to write home about. Therein lies the colorism in the black community. I told you, when you're dark in complexion in the black community, or when you're not as bright as Yellowbone, men literally don't see you. They're blind to your beauty. Ababoni. Anyway, so this guy says to me that I never used to think you were beautiful until Jonathan. We once asked him, who do you think is the most beautiful woman in our department, in our team? And then Jonathan, some white dude, was like, Karabo, by far. I was so flattered because I always thought Jonathan was cute. And I also thought Jonathan liked this other one white chick, but it turns out that Jonathan thought I was pretty. Anyway, I was flattered and surprised. I was like, whoa, Jonathan thought I was pretty by far out of everybody in the team. I was actually chuffing myself with it. But he didn't just stop with mentioning Jonathan. He was like, yeah, I never used to think you were pretty, Karabo, until Jonathan highlighted it. And then I started to look at you deeply and I realized you actually are kind of pretty. This guy, I just listened to him be with little discretion and I was like, what's going on? Black men out here struggling to see a black woman's beauty when she's got a certain skin tone. I spoke about that the other day, and I spoke about how it is like these cameras out here are reflecting a certain lighting that can make me look lighter than normal, but in waking life I'm like tougher, like my skin tone is like somewhere between black and light, dark and light. Okay, yeah. I just get walked right by the nose off in the climate of these coloristic men. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, and my colleague, not my colleague, sorry, my boy also thinks you're beautiful when he saw you the other day at the funeral. So at this stage, give you narali, right? This is after the funeral, but before me working out. And he's like, yeah, my boy also saw you at the funeral. And I was like, whoa, she's so pretty. So now ever since Jonathan and Temba happened to agree that you're pretty, so this guy never reached his own conclusion. He just ran with what other men said. He's like, since they think you're pretty, I therefore conclude that you must also be pretty. So I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So leave that there. So it turns out that, who is this Oki? Temba at the funeral thought I was beautiful too, in the same way that I thought he was something special. And then it turned out when I was busy working out with this dude and with Thomas, he came to me one time at work and said to me, Temba thinks you're so beautiful. And I was like, oh, thank you, right? So basically Temba mentioned twice that he thought I was beautiful. I don't know if he merely mentioned that he thinks I'm pretty, or if he said that was pretty. Is it possible if you can hook me up with her? I don't know if he raised it. What is true, however, is that he definitely knew that I had a boyfriend, because I went to the funeral with my boyfriend, and he was there at the funeral. We were all together with my boyfriend right there at the funeral, and then at the gymnasium, he knew that I had a boyfriend at the time, and it was the same boyfriend that I had at the funeral, right? So I can't tell you if at all Temba out here said, God was beautiful, please hook me up if you need boyfriend, or if he was like, she's just beautiful and just let it go. I don't know what was going on over there, but he certainly saw it fit to highlight it a few times and let my colleague know that that's what he was out here feeling, right? Or thinking about me. Cool beans and bananas, right? I then start working out with the guy. This information comes to me. I think nothing. I think that, okay, so my colleague's best friend thinks I'm pretty and my colleague's best friend is hot stuff, but I am not even in the slightest thinking that maybe, just maybe, plus coupled with the fact that I'm Tembi, I didn't trust my colleague, so I could never ever be with his friend, because to me it was like birds of a feather. He was all over the show. He character assassinated just about every woman he slept with. He was a misogynist in the worst way and a chauvinist, and so while he was okay at an arm's length to be a colleague and a friend, he certainly could never be more than that. I could never ever recommend him to any of my girls, because he to me was just oozing. He was giving unloving in a relationship. I could not see this man love a woman because he was just so chauvinistic. He was never he was also objectifying, extremely objectifying of women, and it never changed her like underwear. So now for me, I could never I wrote off his friend's character based on him, even though I had experienced his friend's character briefly at the funeral. He was a lot more decent and cordial, and of course all the days when I was at the gymnasium, he was total good peoples. He kept himself at a healthy distance. He greeted. He was good peoples. There was nothing licentious about him. He did not flirt. He was not heavy with flirtation. I was surprised to learn that he even thought I was pretty, because nothing of him gave off, I think, you're pretty. When he spoke with me, he never, you know how men look at you when they are literally eyeing you, when they're obviously checking you out, when they're obviously, sizing you up. He was neutral, like the way that a professional would be. Hi, how are you? Good, nice to meet you. And when you out here laughing, everybody, he's laughing at jokes and he's looking away and then looking that way, but nothing of a, nothing gave off he likes me. He just gave off, what a nice guy, he's so sweet. That's all that this guy gave off. I could never have picked it up from his